Two new anonymous models just dropped, and they're really, really good. I've been keeping an eye on the new Horizon series that popped up on OpenRouter over the last few days, and I have been absolutely blown away with them. I took some time today to really sit down and try the models out for various different things, and I've been floored with what they're capable of, especially when it comes to UI and design. So quick test, I asked for a bunch of different models to generate UI for a fake image studio app, just mock UI stuff in Next.js. And this is what it looked like with Claude 4 Opus, the current state-of-the-art, the best, most expensive option that you have from Anthropic. In comparison, here is the Horizon Alpha generation. These are not close. The Horizon Alpha one is significantly better. But as I mentioned, there isn't one model, there's two. Here's the one from Horizon Beta. Yes, really. I cannot believe how good these models are at UI generation. I have no idea what they are, though. I have dug deep into the details. I have a lot of theories. I have a lot of things that I've been impressed with, a lot of hacks to get the stuff working in Cursor, and so much more to go over. Even though these models are currently available for free on OpenRouter, I have had to spend a lot of money testing against other models, as well as a ton of my spare time today on a Saturday. So someone's got to cover these bills. We're going to do a quick word from today's sponsor, and then I'll dive into all the nitty-gritty details on the new Horizon Anonymous models. My team's been writing more code than ever, which is great, except for the fact that we're now waiting for builds more than ever. Well, we were until we checked out today's sponsor, Depot. Not only will these guys save you time on your builds, they'll save you a ton of money in the process too. It's super easy to integrate. If you're already using GitHub Actions, Depot will probably be a drop-in replacement with one line of code changed in your GitHub Action definition. Tons of other companies already made the move, including PostHog, not just for their CI, but more importantly for their Docker image builds, because they are so much faster. Seriously though, the PostHog Docker build dropped by 41x when they moved to Depot, from over 3 hours to under 5 minutes. You've probably all experienced how much faster CI builds are on your computer than they are on the server. That is, unless you're using Depot. Seriously, I've never seen this before. 20 minutes for a build on the laptop, 5 minutes for the build on Depot. That's funny to me. I'm so used to it being the opposite. Their compute's way faster, their networking's way faster, they have no restrictions on concurrency, and it's all half the price of GitHub Actions. Yes, really. It's kind of insane. If you're tired of waiting on builds, check them out today at soydev.link/depot. So the first question you almost certainly have is, what the hell are these models? Who is Horizon? As I mentioned at the start, these are anonymous models that were dropped exclusively through OpenRouter. So if you go to OpenRouter, which is an awesome way to route traffic across various different models, we use it a ton for T3 chat, you'll see this new Horizon Beta model that's currently available on the site. There was also a Horizon Alpha model that I managed to run a couple tests in before it disappeared. It's no longer available. It was fun at the time. I got some tests, we'll cover what it did, but Horizon Beta is still currently available. That said, we don't know who is hosting it, your data will be trained on when you use it, and we also don't know when it's going to go away. So if you want to try it, now's the time to go try it, because in a very, very short amount of time, this probably won't be available anymore. And if you want to try it in a chat interface, the best one in the world has it available, T3 Chat. We put a lot of work into building this. You can see here we already support the Horizon Alpha and Beta models, as well as every other model you would reasonably want to try. And while $8 a month is cheap, these models are free. I would put them in the free tier, but we have a rate limit that will be hit almost immediately if we do. So instead, we're going to give you a discount code. If you haven't already subscribed to T3 Chat in the past and you want to give these models a shot, you can subscribe right now using the coupon code Horizon at checkout to get your first month for just $1. As I mentioned before, I've been playing with these models a ton, and one of the first tests I like to do is asking the model about skateboarding. And from asking this model about the history of the 360 flip, I was able to get a good idea of how it speaks and works, and more importantly, the fact that it isn't a reasoning model. You'll see when I run with either Horizon Alpha or Beta, there is no reasoning period. There is no hidden reasoning going on either, because it starts responding almost instantaneously. I just sent, and now we're getting a response generating really fast. I actually turned on stats for nerds on T3 Chat, which is a super handy setting to see how fast a generation actually came through. And you'll see here that these models are between like 90 and 125 tokens per second for most generations. This one was like 108. This one was around 92. Really fast models. I've been trying to figure out where these models came from, and there's a lot of different ways you can do that. One of the most common ones is to just ask. If you ask Horizon Alpha or Beta, what model is it and who trained it, our system prompt is going to tell it to use the info that we provided. So on T3 Chat, it's not going to be a perfect answer. It's going to be the one that is coaxed by our system prompt. When you ask it directly using something with less of a system prompt, what are you, who trained you? Horizon Alpha seems to think it's an OpenAI model. Horizon Beta just says it's Horizon Beta from an unknown provider, doesn't have any details. This is a very interesting set of responses, which you would think means, oh, obviously this is OpenAI. I'm not so sure about that, actually, because in the past, when you ask certain models, like, DeepSeek models, what provider they came from, they would respond with OpenAI because they were trained on data that was generated by OpenAI. So this doesn't actually give us any real information. And even more interesting news, people have been analyzing the tokenization from the model, which means how it breaks up the text into different tokens that are used to be processed. OpenAI has changed the way they do tokenization a few times throughout their history, but it's like once every couple generations. And you'll see here that GPT-4o, 4.1 mini, and Nano all make this input the exact same number of tokens. But this new Horizon Alpha model has one less token based on this particularly weird, noisy input. So that difference there is very, very interesting, in particular because Qwen models also detected it as 334 tokens. So this very well could be a Qwen model. I'm not so sure it is, though, just from various other things I've been testing and playing around with. But all of the signs right now point to it being a bit hard to know what model it is. So yeah, anybody who's guaranteeing that this is like GPT-5 or the new OpenAI open model, or maybe this is the new Claude 5 or something, no one actually knows what model this is. We can't know what model this is, but I do know this model is really, really good. From absolutely destroying the ball test, like one of the best hexagon ball demos I've seen. This is a full real web app that was done in one prompt that gives you a ton of different customization and settings and looks really good as a web app. Very impressed with this. Flavia did a bunch of different comparisons that were interesting, showing with Horizon Alpha and Beta how weirdly good it is at the Pelican test. The Pelican test is telling an AI model to make an SVG of a pelican riding a bicycle. It's a very interesting test because it needs a lot of spatial awareness, capability with the weird quirks within SVGs, and the ability to make a bird that's kind of strange, a pelican, because it has weird characteristics. Pelicans are weird birds. And if you compare Horizon Alpha's result here to other models, even reasoning models, it's actually performing quite well. It's one of the best pelicans we've seen to date. It seems really good at SVGs in general. This is what happens when you tell it to generate R2-D2, C-3PO, and a couple other things from Star Wars. So it's good at SVGs in a way I haven't personally seen. But the thing it really excels at is styling. These two examples I made with Horizon Alpha and Beta are just blowing me away in the quality of the output. I made these using Cursor, of course, but you'll see this was not as smooth to generate as it might seem. I added the model with a couple hacks in Cursor. I have Cursor thinking it's an OpenAI model, but then I give it a different endpoint to send the requests to. There's a little guide on the OpenRouter site on how to do this. Funny enough for Kimmy, but I'm using it for these models instead, and it's working okay. I'll quickly demo what I'm talking about here by pasting the same prompt. This app's going to be an image generation studio using various AI models to turn prompts into images. Design a mocked version. It should be dark mode. Focus on making it beautiful. So when I give this to Horizon Alpha, the first thing it does, oh, it's actually behaving differently this time. Okay, the first couple times I tried this, it gave me a to-do list at the top, every time. It would make this to-do list, it would generate most of the UI, and then I would get this error. We're having trouble connecting to the model provider. It would tell me to turn off my MCP servers, so I did, and then after turning off said MCP servers, I continued to have the same problem. You'll also notice that it kind of just goes right into it, because again, it's not a reasoning model. It seems like it was a mistake that it had reasoning on because they turned it off almost immediately, but there was a brief moment where reasoning was working with alpha, which means it has the capability of doing both. Most of the tests you've been seeing and most of the characteristics that we've been sharing are in the non-reasoning version because it was only able to reason for 30 minutes due to some error on the implementation side. Cool, this time it didn't give me any errors. That's nice. It's a fresh generation, so I might as well see how it came out, right? Okay, something went really wrong in Cursor there, but this is what it generated with that attempt. Still looks significantly better than what I was seeing from a lot of the other models that I've been trying. I'm going to go back and try this once more because I want you guys to see the weirdness I've been dealing with. Try it again. This time I'm going to do Horizon Beta because that's the one that seems to be more blessed at the moment. We're going to try this again with Beta. And there we go. The first thing it does is makes a to-do list. And I haven't seen any of the other models do this as a first step inside of Cursor. This is a behavior I've seen in stuff like Claude Code, but I've never seen Cursor do it, which is weird that it has special behaviors. But these are all just tools that are provided to the models by Cursor. It just seems like it wants to use that tool first. As I mentioned before, it is very quick to actually do the generation, but then it throws an error almost immediately. So it's not going to go through the rest of that to-do list, but it is going to make a good starting point. And if we go back once more, stunning. It's really good at gradients. This is a thing I've not seen other models do well. Again, for comparison, if we compare to the Kimi K2 version that I did, it has a nice gradient, but it uses like the annoying Tailwind blue slate colors too much. Just don't dig that. Then I did one with Claude 4 Sonnet, and it looks like it was done with Claude 4 Sonnet. Lots of rounded corners, lots of big space and padding between things. It's fine, but I wouldn't recommend this. Then we had the Claude 4 Opus version, which was expensive to generate. I got a warning in Cursor that I was going to be going over my limits for the month very soon if I keep using it. And this super ugly, the signature Claude button. I almost want to like post a screenshot of this and be like, you know, it was made with Claude if, when it has this particular like purple to red or pinkish pattern, those cringy gradients are very much a Claude special. And then we have the first Horizon Alpha version I did with a much, much better gradient. Even on here, you can see the generate buttons gradient goes like top left to bottom right. And even though the colors are roughly the same, it looks significantly better. It just has more taste. And then the Horizon Beta version is the only one I did that didn't go with the pink and purple for some reason. It went with blue and green. And it also looks great. The tasteful like gradient back blur droplet things just give it presence in a way it didn't have before. And all of these are the exact same prompts starting from the exact same starting point. So to have that level of quality difference is kind of insane. I'm genuinely really impressed with it. But I still want to figure out what this model is, so let's go through some more stuff. I mentioned before that I asked it some questions about skateboarding, and I actually got a pretty good answer when I asked it about the history of the 360 flip, which is one of my favorite tricks. One of my favorite things to check for when I ask about this is whether or not Jason Lee comes up, because he's the person who really popularized the trick. In a lot of historical accounts of skateboarding, Jason Lee gets skipped over a bit more than he should be, but he really is the one who brought this trick to the streets and made it as popular as it is, and to this day still is the best 360 flip. So making sure he comes up is a really fun test. When you compare to other models like, I don't know, Kimi K2, the likelihood somebody like him comes up is a lot lower. So here it's giving credit to Nadas and Mark Gonzalez, neither of which really did 360 flips. The two of them were really close with Jason Lee, who was the one who popularized it with them. So weird to see him come up later after those two. That's just not the best retelling. The Chinese models have historically struggled a lot with skateboarding stuff. Also, citing the 2021 Olympics with a trick that didn't happen as cementing the trick's global status is hilarious. The 360 flip is the most signature skate trick other than the kickflip. So yeah, Chinese models are not good at this. So let's compare to some of the other models I wanted to check quick. Here is the same prompt given to GPT 4.1. And you'll notice that the style of it is actually very similar. The way it breaks down the origins, the early propagation, refinements and iconic executions, variations and branches. We'll just go through these in order. Origins is the same on both. Origins and innovations versus origins. Bullet points immediately after. Early propagation versus early appearances. Similar. Refinements and iconic executions. Popularization is replacing that part. Same difference. Modern era. Variations and branches. So it stops being as one-to-one, but the formatting and the way it's organized feels very similar. If we compare that to O4 Mini, for example, it's very different. We get this numbered list with sub-bullet points that actually vary in the type of bullets. It's not the best formatted thing I've ever seen, and it's different. And of course, it also had reasoning too. This is much more clinical. It seems like Horizon is a little less so. It's a little friendlier to talk to. That could just be the difference with reasoning. Traditionally, reasoning models are not the most fun to interact with, but they are much smarter and get better answers to questions. The outputs just tend to be more clinical. Compare that with Claude 4 Sonnet. I intentionally use Claude 4 Sonnet without reasoning to make it a more one-to-one comparison. Very different in how it's structured. Then we have Horizon Alpha, which is the other version of the Horizon model. Again, very, very similar to GPT 4.1 as well as to Horizon Beta. Here it is again with Horizon Alpha, same difference. And since the theory was Quen, let's try it with some of the Quen models. We'll try the Quen 3 32 bill. Why not? This one's a reasoning model. Origins and development, cultural impact, key takeaways. Interesting. So this came out quite a bit different. It also came out quite a bit faster, but that's largely because we're using Grok with a Q for the inference provider for all of this. Came out really good though. 360 flips widely attributed to Mike Vallely. No, it is fucking not. That's a lie. So again, the Chinese models are not good about the history of skateboarding. That's actually why I made a new benchmark, Skatebench, where I compare how good different models are at naming skate tricks when given a description. And you'll notice that the Chinese models tend to get basically a 0 on this test versus the OpenAI O3 and O3 Pro models, which get a really, really good score. I didn't add the numbers for Horizon Alpha and Beta to this, but I did run it and they scored around a 20%. So somewhere between Grok 3 Mini and GPT-4o is roughly where they fell. So let's just put down what we know so far. They're anonymous models, so we don't actually have official answers as to where they came from. The tokenization matches Quen, which is a weird detail, but worth noting. They're non-reasoning models, but Alpha very briefly had reasoning, likely as an error. Obviously, the model underneath can support it, or that error wouldn't have happened, but the fact that they are putting it out there as a non-reasoning model is something that we should absolutely take note of, as well as the fact that it briefly was able to do reasoning due to what was certainly a bug. It's really good at UI, as well as things like SVGs, etc. It's pretty good at tool calls. It's hard to know for sure because nobody's really run big tool calling benchmarks. I ran them against Snitchbench and they performed pretty well for that. They didn't snitch almost at all. I believe it was like 10% on my first test for the Boldly prompt and 0% for the Tamely prompt. Pretty good results there. I didn't save them because I was testing a lot of different things and lost the results. And I can't test again because Alpha is now getting rate limited really hard. And I don't want to burn through my rate limits when users could be using T3 chat instead. Snitchbench is a very hungry benchmark in terms of token utilization, as well as chances that you get warnings from the LLM providers that you are doing things that might be illegal, because that's the point of the benchmark. Anyways, it really likes to plan. So when given tools for planning, things like a to-do list tool, it will use that aggressively really early in its process. It likes to describe what it's doing and why as well. It's pretty fast. I'm not going to say really fast because we don't know how it will perform when it's on real infra and provided, but it's around 125 tokens per second. You know what? I'm more comfortable saying it's around 110. That's about the average for my testing so far. Funny enough, it seems like the model isn't benching too great on a lot of different benchmarks. That might be because it's a reasoning model, but isn't given the access to the reasoning. It might be that the model is really small. It could be a lot of different things. There's a lot of theorization that this is a small model from OpenAI. I don't know if I buy that just because it's weird. This model is different and very, very interesting. Still not very good at math. As you see here, it performs worse than Llama 4 Maverick and comically worse than something like O3 Mini High, much less O4 Mini. So yeah, not great performance on a lot of different benchmarks. But I do honestly think we are nearing the end of the value of these types of benchmarks because they don't tend to reflect my experience in real life. Like if we go to artificial analysis, for example, you'll see that Claude 4 Opus Thinking performs worse than Gemini 2.5 Flash Reasoning. And if you've used either of those models for writing code for actual work, you know obviously both Sonnet and Opus are significantly better for writing code than anything performing better than them on these tests. And even if we look down to the live code benchmark, you'll see supposedly that on live code bench, Claude 4 Sonnet and Opus both perform significantly worse than a ton of other things, which just doesn't line up with my IRL experience. You can see similar results in things like SciCode, where Claude 4 models just don't perform as well as O4 Mini and Grok. But that's not reality. These are benchmarks, and these benchmarks seem to not really show how good these models are in day-to-day usage. And my honest guess is that if they put Horizon on these benchmarks, it would perform even worse by the numbers. But again, from my lived experience using it and playing with it, the only issue I have is that it fails after the first to-do is completed, because again, there's something up with how the open router hack I'm doing in Cursor is working. But it's still doing a really good job, and the results that I'm getting are just fucking stunning. Like, I can't get over how good these two options look. I've been working on a new image generation studio on the side. That's why I thought of this. I was using it as a test to see how well the model could generate things that look good for this type of product. And both of them did significantly better than anything I've even made by hand myself. One other thing of note is that there are other places where anonymous models appear to be dropping right now. There's currently a model live on LM Arena called Lobster. We don't actually know what it is. Lasan, who was doing these tests, claims that it's GPT-5. I don't think so. More importantly, it seems from how it's doing things to be very similar to the Horizon models that we're currently playing with. The generation we're looking at here is not the one generated by Lobster. This is one that was generated by Grok 4, which is supposedly the smartest and best model. And in comparison, here's the one that was generated by Lobster. Think we can agree it's a little bit better. The thing that makes me so sure it's the same model is the way it's doing the corner faded dot style gradient, where we have the blue on the bottom right and the purple on the top left, really faded out in the background. That seems to be a signature thing that this model likes to do. You can see a very similar thing here with the blue fade on the top and the green one on the bottom, and even here with the purple light fade at the top there for this very blacked out UI. It seems like a style that exists pretty deeply baked into the model. I am giving it Tailwind, so it is doing this generation with Tailwind, but it looks really good. Like I would ship this or tidy it very slightly and ship it soon after. I'm blown away. So likely the same model as Lobster. What other key points? It's free for now. It will disappear soon. So try it ASAP. They are likely training on your data. No one gives out something this good for free. They want to see the reception of what they built, whoever built this. They put it up on OpenRouter for free the way they did so that people like us would try it, play with it, see what it does well, see what it does poorly, share our experience, and they can look at the inputs and outputs and see what it is and isn't doing well. That's why we went from alpha to beta so quickly. They're clearly making adjustments throughout. There are some theories that the alpha version was the low param version, like 20 bil, and the beta version is the higher 120 bil version. But again, we don't know for sure. We don't know much of anything at all because we are just hitting a random API endpoint and getting back content that is higher quality than we've ever seen before. Hypothetically speaking, this could be one dude sitting in a room typing out the responses really quickly for all we know. That said, we have to be realistic, and realistically speaking, these outputs are way too good to be some random bullshit. This is probably a major lab, probably testing something that will be dropping in the near future, and I'm blown away with it. I highly recommend playing with this model. I do not recommend mucking up your cursor setup to do it. So if you can find other AI code gen tools that work well with an OpenRouter key, try those out because it'll probably be less jank and get you some really good results. I honestly think the easiest way to test out this model and its capabilities is going to be T3 chat. Told it to respond with a standard HTML body, don't include JS or CSS, use Tailwind, wrap the output in an HTML code block using 3 backticks in Markdown format. So now it's given me this output. It's still generating. It's very fast, but there's a lot of text that it has to generate. And then I just copy paste it into the Tailwind playground when it's ready. That time was a bit slower. The previous run, it was able to hit like 160 tokens per second. This time it was only 80. Clearly their infra is getting hammered right now. Hop back over to the playground. Huh. That looks really good. It's using T3 because that's in the system prompt for like my app. Yeah. Not bad. It's only this one like nice looking homepage. And it didn't handle dark versus light mode well here. I think it's trying to do dark mode, but since it doesn't have the ability to edit the standard CSS, it can't set a page background color. So instead, this is what we get. Still really good, and you can get a feel for how good it is at doing these types of things. I'm impressed as hell. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Am I overhyping this random anonymous model, or is it actually really good? At the very least, I can tell that next week's going to be a very exciting week with all of these crazy drops happening. There is no way that this isn't some crazy thing that we're going to see a lot more about very, very soon. Hope you appreciate the early heads up, and I hope you get a chance to play with it. If you haven't yet, let me know what y'all think. And until next time, peace, nerds.